Hey guys, welcome back. What I wanted to do today, with summer now being here in Australia on the East Coast, and a lot of talk of marlin, of mahi mahi, a lot of different fish kind of like now appearing out quite wide. I've seen a few really small boats out wide. And it got me thinking, I've been down the tackle shop and hearing people like, oh, how do you catch a marlin and all this stuff. And I thought, well, why don't I do a little video of how I set my boat up to catch marlin, being a trailer boat. You see all these 30-foot, 50-foot Vikings going offshore, a couple of $1 million boats that are really well equipped that can handle these conditions. But it doesn't really need to stop there. Obviously, you need a boat that's safe. But the ocean is really, really big. It can get wet and wild at times, but you do get these days where those smaller boats, those 5-meter, 7-meter boats can go offshore and get a marlin. So I thought I'd really just try and help people in targeting marlin, knowing how I set up my boat. So we'll go through a few things. We'll go through the boat setup itself, all the additional equipment that you need. When I say additional, obviously you need the standard safety equipment that's legalized in your state, but the additional equipment that will really help you put your boat on top of the fish. We'll also talk about the rod setup, the rod and reel setup that we have, so we can get these marlin to the boat in a safe and respectable amount of time, so we're not killing or harming the fish. We'll talk about our lures and how we run our spread and how we set our spread. And then we'll also talk about things like, well, where do you get them and when do you get them? When are the marlin off the New South Wales coast? What do we need to look for while we're out there fishing? So first up, my boat is 7.2 meters big. Look, it's got a lot of space on it, as you can see here. It's got quite a bit of deck space. It's got quite a few toys and a little bit of additional things on the boat, which will help it navigate through to these waves. But we've added a lot of the standard equipment, but things that you will need straight up are you're going to need fitted rod holders. I saw someone out the other day and they had those little clip-on rod holders that you get on kayaks, and they were trolling, and I was just thinking, God, if something big hits that's your rod, your reel, your lure, and your rod holder gone into the water. Not only that, it's also going to be attached to a big fish for quite a while, which is going to do some damage to it. So obviously you need the rod holders set and welded into your boat. We've got the rocket launchers up here. We've also got them down the sides of the top as well in case we needed more. We've obviously got 7 out the back and then an extra 2 on each of the gunnels. You're also going to need somewhere to store your rods, right? If you're trolling 4 rods and you hook up, you're going to need to get these rods out of the water as soon as possible and get them out the way. So this is where cabin storage can help, where you can throw them down the front of your cabin, or again, stick them up on the roof and get them out the way. Electrics, look, the standard fish finders, navigation are fine. We run an autopilot system on our boat, which is an absolute godsend, if I'm going to be honest, especially when we're solo. And the reason why we opted for an autopilot was literally for our trolling setup. When I'm out solo and you hook into a fish, your boat can turn in multiple directions, which changes your angle on the fish, it changes the angle on the hook, and it can make it pretty difficult. I run an autopilot, so I literally just stick it at a heading, trolling or continuing forward at 0.5 knots. So I know the boat is always going to stay steady in one direction. And then if I need to change the angle on the boat, I can quite easily just turn the wheel, disengage the autopilot, and then re-engage it when I'm happy. With our fish finders, we've got a 1K transducer. That's to help find the bottom. We can be fishing anywhere between 100 and 3,000 meters deep, depending on what day, where the currents are going, where the warm water is. finding the bottom isn't always necessarily important. What's important is you can see that first, 200 meters of that water column, because then you can see where the bait is, you can see what's on that bait and what the bait's doing. But we run a 1K transducer. When we're in shallower, in like 150 meters, we run it in the high ranges, and when we go offshore, like properly offshore, like over to the shelf, we run it in the low, which can still hit the bottom. We touched on deck space a minute ago, and deck space is important. These fish are big. You could be hooked up to something that potentially weighs a lot more than you do, and it's in its natural environment, which means it's a lot more powerful than you really think it is in that sort of space. So being able to have the space to move around your deck, not having it cluttered, removing all your things like your fenders, your ropes, once you've brought your teasers and your lines in, get them out the way, give whoever is on that rod as much space as possible. I'll link up a couple of examples as well and put some videos over the top of this on examples where we've actually had to say to deckies, hey mate, you need to move. Because the fish is going to swing left. Your skipper, you can always tell when that fish is going to move, and the skipper who's in charge of the boat, when somebody's hooked up, should really be making those calls on, okay, we can see this fish is going to move, and if we can't change the angle on the boat, we need to change the angle of the angler, which means that they need space. It's very exciting when you hook up. But whilst it's really, really exciting, people are out with their phones and they're not really concentrating on where that line's going, and the angler on the rod has very little capability to be able to move that. So for a safety reason, you need to be able to say, okay, we all need to calm down. We are going to get our photos, we are going to get our footage, we are going to get our videos, but we need to stay at that safe distance and move around. So give that angler as much deck space as possible. A really big tip, which I can give you as well, is a lot of these boats have different floors. Like we've got our sea deck, which is, a really good fabric. It's very, very easy on your feet. It doesn't get too warm, but it's not slippy, right? So we've obviously got a dive door on the boat as well, or a fish boarding door. A lot of water comes into the boat at times and then drains straight back out. But we need to make sure that the angler and the people on deck have got really steady footing. It's very, very easy to slip over the side. It's very easy to slip on deck, cause an injury. So with our recommendation is a pair of reef shoes. Reef shoes are absolutely amazing. They're brilliant. Not only do they help on the boat, they're pretty comfortable to wear on a hot day, but also on the boat ramps. The boat ramps are really slippy, so instead of like scuffing up your brand new trainers or whatever, a pair of reef shoes on those algae-filled boat ramps, they're pretty sturdy, pretty solid. You'll find yourself slipping a lot less with them. And yeah, you can just jump in and out of the water. It doesn't matter if you get them wet. The only recommendation that I would make on your reef shoes is always wash them in fresh water after every time that you've been in salt water. The reason for that is my dogs will not go near my reef shoes sometimes because they stink so much. Also, when you're in an enclosed cabin like we are and you're sat there with your reef shoes and you've not washed them, it can make it really unpleasant for the people in the boat with you. I had a guy out the other day, and I could smell them myself, and I'm like, oh my God, I can smell my shoes. They smell so bad. And I felt really bad for him. I ended up taking them off, putting them in the bait tank and running the bait tank with a lot of salt water just to try and wash them. It was like a washing machine effect, just to try and get that smell out of them. God, it was horrible. Look, as well, obviously you're going offshore, right? To catch marlin, you're taking your boat and you're traveling quite a distance. And it's always important to know how much fuel you're going to need. My boat has a 350 litre fuel tank, and I always make sure on my trips that I'm topped off. And I know, from going out at 5 a.m., booting out to my spot at 20 to 30 knots, getting to my spot, I know how much fuel that's going to take, and then I know how much fuel I'm consuming every couple of hours during trolling. So I know around, if I get back in, go out at 5 a.m., come back in at 2 a.m., I'll always have around 160 litres left. So I'll burn around 200 litres in that time. Always knowing how much fuel that your motor is going to consume, how much you're going to take, and always having that backup as well. Don't sit there and go, all right, I've got 100 litres of fuel and my trip's going to be 95. If your trip's going to be 95 litres, take 150 litres of fuel. You always need that additional bit. No fisherman is ever going to leave a bite. No fisherman is ever going to leave a bust up and sit there and go, well, I don't have enough fuel to get home. Always take over the amount of fuel that you need. And the final tip just on the boat setup is good boat maintenance. I can give you examples. My windscreen wipers have been a bit dodgy now and again. One of the blades came off the other week. So I was out in the ocean, a lot of spray coming up to the window, and I couldn't see anything because I couldn't use my wipers. It's just simple things like that. Always stay on top of your boat maintenance. Always clean your boat with fresh water and get all the salt off it afterwards. And the same goes with your trailer. But the last thing that you want is out offshore is that you have a really bad mechanical problem that you cannot fix. We carry tools on the boat, but we're not mechanics ourselves. So if that motor blows up offshore, I've got no idea how to fix it. So then obviously your safety equipment, your radios, your EPIRBs, your fire extinguishers, everything should be on the boat in a really accessible place. Like our EPIRBs down here, our fire extinguishers over there, and our radios right above our head. And these are like things that you really need to make sure that you're on top of. Everything is accessible. Your first aid kits are accessible. Again, I had a guy on the boat a couple of weeks ago who banged his head on the rocket launcher. He wasn't really, used to being on this boat, so kind of forgive him for that, but he banged his head on the rocket launcher, split his head open, looked like Harry Potter, blood pouring down his face, and we had the first aid kit easy to hand, just to make sure that he was okay. We were actually heading back in anyway, so it was all good. So that'll do for boat setup at the moment. Just always make sure that everything is in the right place, and you've got a lot of storage, you've got a lot of deck space, and you know what you're doing. Okay, for our tackle, our main tackle, I'll take you through the rods and the reels that we use in a moment. Everyone's got their opinions on this. Like anything I'm going to say, everyone's going to have their opinions. You're going to get people scrunched up noses going, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Or, well, we did it differently and we found it better that way. Everyone's going to have their own way of doing things. But this is what's really worked for us. And over the last couple of years, we've had tremendous success on marlin, we've had tremendous success on tuna, on mahi mahi, and we've done it in a safe, efficient way. But we've constantly brought fish to the boat. We used to run Shimano Tiagras, the big reels. And we just found that there was no need. It was a massive overkill for what we were targeting. We're only targeting marlin, anywhere between 50 kilo to 150 kilo. You don't need massive gear, but you do need the right gear. The Tiagras, for what they were, expensive reels, they're still sat, in my house. They're expensive reels, but you don't need them for what you're doing on a trailer boat. So we run two different setups. If we're running for mahi mahi or smaller tuna, like smaller yellowfin, around that 30-40 kilo mark, we run, God, I can't even remember the reels. We run 15 kilo line on 15 kilo rods with just a pen overhead reel. They're like 30 wides. They're not even wides. I think they're just 30s. Nothing too extreme. We find that, that gives enough fight for the fish for it to be enjoyable. It gives enough give in the rod for the fish to have a good chance, but also for you, to get it to the boat safely. Wouldn't recommend that for marlin. We ran one probably about a year ago now. We were running one off the shotgun just on a smaller lure, and we had a marlin in our spread, and it was moving from rod to rod to rod, from lure to lure. And then we thought it disappeared, and it went out the back and hit the shotgun tiny little skirt that we were using for the little striped tuna and the Mahi Mahi. It hit that and absolutely demolished us. It stripped all the line and ended up cutting the line off just above the leader mark, because we weren't using a wind-on leader on it either, because it was a pretty small, we weren't expecting anything too big. So now we've put wind-on leaders on all of our lines, but quite simply that fish was far too big for the rod that we were using. So it's not that you have to go really expensive, but you do need to spend a little bit of money. So I'll take you through the rods that we use. Currently, we are absolutely in love with these. These are the TLD 2-speed 50 LRSAs. Very, very good reels. You know, they've got the 2-speed on them, so it's literally just a push for high, push for low. On the reel itself, it's got a good drag recommendation, I think about 22 kilos. We load it with 24 kilo line, and also 7 meters of leader. So we've got a couple of meters or 1.5 meters on the lure itself. We then run an additional 5 meters of 200 kilo to 250 kilo wind-on leader, and that just stops the gill plates, you know, the tails, and the rough beaks and everything, just really rubbing on the line and snapping it off. It also gives us a chance to leader the fish really safely and efficiently when it's near the boat. The rods that we use these Tagums, Shimano Tagums, fully rolled, with the bent butts. So we actually have 2 bent butt rods, and we have 2 bent butt rods and 3 straight butt rods, and we run the bent butts off our corners. What we found is we found the bigger fish come in on the corners rather than the riggers. So the bigger fish that we have, it's easier to fight a bigger fish with a bent butt rod if you've got the right harness for it, which we do, which I'll take you through in a bit. So we run our bent butts off the corners, and we run our straight butts off the riggers, and also down the middle for the shotgun. With each of our rods, we also have to have a rod lanyard. These just attach to your cleats, and then with each of these reels, they're actually screwed on at the bottom, and you literally just attach that to that. Now, no matter what type of rod you're running, no matter what type of setup you've got, always put your lanyards onto your reels or onto your rods. Find a way to attach them. The reason is very, very simple. These fish are big, they're powerful, and they have the ability to change the angle on the line, on the reel, and where the pressure comes from extremely easily. It is unbelievably easy for them to strip a rod out of a rod holder. No matter the angle on it, it is very easy for them to pull them out of the rod holder, and then all of a sudden you've got a fish with $1,000 worth of equipment never to be seen again. And again, it's damaging the fish for one, but it's also $1,000 worth of your equipment. Always have those lanyards on. We've actually got them all over the boat. So we've got them here attached to our rod riggers. We've got them on the stern cleats for them. We've also got one up here somewhere for the shotgun. So we never actually have a rod that isn't attached to the boat. Very, very important that. And then remember with your leaders as well, if you are tagging fish, if you are a part of a game fishing club, just remember that you have a max leader length. So instead of just running 200 kilo line all the way through, you're only allowed something like 7.8 meters of leader, including your double line. So your double knot at the top, it can only go to around 7.8 meters. Anything over that, it will invalidate your fish. So we run a total of 7.2 meters, including the rod, including the knot even. And as I said, that just gives us enough room and enough space that when the fish are coming to the side of the boat and they start pinwheeling and they're starting ready to come in, that we can leader them safely without having to really do too much more. What you'll also find as well with marlin, a little bit like tuna, that when they do get close to a boat, and they're basically right under it, they do have a tendency to start diving under the boat and rubbing the line across the bottom of the boat. If you're running an aluminium boat, it's not ideal, and it does get a little bit shaky at times, and you do get a little bit concerned. Running that 250 pound, 200 pound leader just gives you that little bit more safety in knowing that this fish isn't going to get away. So let's talk about other equipment that we have. We run a harness all the time on our on-strike angler. So what we run is the Black Magic equalizer. Again, not really a cheap option, but one of the better options. It's 2-part harness. But what we actually have is we have the extra pin in here as well. So I think the extra pin costs like 20 bucks or something. But it's, if you're using a bent butt, you put it on the front. If you're using a straight butt, you put it on the back. So it doesn't change the angle too much. If you run a bent butt on a standard one, it won't work very well. With the harnesses, we actually strap up our anglers before the fish comes. So we've got plenty of videos of people sitting on our deck with the harness on, waiting for that fish. And the reason for that is it's a little bit of mayhem. Okay, and we'll talk about the strike later, but when you're clearing the deck, when you're pulling the teasers and everything, it's just a little bit of a time saver that this angler can already be set up and harnessed up. The point of the harness is twofold. One, it's to make it a little bit more comfortable for the angler. Instead of having that rod, especially with that bent butt, trying to hold the rod, hold all the pressure on the rod, not having anywhere to leverage it because of the bent butt, and the reel at the same time with the fish attached. The harness, it gives you a place to rest the rod, but it also attaches you to the rod. Which might seem a little counterintuitive, right? When you think about, well, I'm going to attach myself to a 100-kilo fish that's swimming in its environment, that's got a massive sword on the front of its face. It doesn't sound like really intuitive, but it's actually a lot more safer for you to do this. Also with the Black Magic handle, if you do have like a younger angler or somebody who's not a sturdy on the feet, you do have a good grab handle on the back. So if they're not so steady on their feet, or if they're not as comfortable, you can always just have somebody holding them as well, which then puts 2 people's weight versus 1. The harnesses actually change the weight distribution as well. So you're not fighting the fish with your back or your shoulders, you're fighting it more with your legs and your glutes. It really helps fighting the fish. I would not want to fight a marlin without one of these again. It's a very, very stable and simple way to get this fish to the boat. Again, not cheap. I think they cost around $350, $500, something like that. But absolutely essential to what you're doing. And just going back to the rods as well, the reason why we run the overheads instead of spin reels, they're just not good for that type of fishing. You can try many different types, like you can try a spin reel if you want. I really wouldn't recommend it. I find the overheads give you a lot more leverage, a lot more control over the fish, and a lot more comfort in actually in what you're doing whilst you're fighting that fish. Spin reels, you'll find very, very few spin reels that will come with a lanyard clip. You'll find very few spin reels that will fit into a harness well. So yeah, just the overheads, honestly go for it. As well as a harness, another piece of clothing that we always have on hand as well are gloves. Now we have a pair of gloves for the angler. These are just landing gloves. They're very gritty on the surface, but really breathable when you wear them. 2 reasons for it. The first is when you're playing a fish, your hands can get a little bit blistered up if you're on it for a while. So having gloves on stops that blistering. Secondly, when you're bringing a marlin into the boat, you need to be able to have some way to touch this marlin. It might sound stupid, but their bills are really, really rough. They're not nice and smooth. They're actually rough to the point where they can serrate. They're very, very, like, it's like very, very coarse sandpaper. So having a pair of gloves, being able to hold that marlin on its bill to release it is extremely important. Also leadering the line when the marlin is close to you. Having a pair of gloves on, you know, with a very grippy surface that's not going to, you know, it's not going to serrate the line at all. Holding onto that line with the gloves, it's going to give you a lot more purchase, but it's also, if that marlin decides to run and you can't release it quick enough, it's not going to cut into your hands. Okay, just additional equipment that we always have on the boat as well. So we always have a big esky. Now, the reason for a big esky is Mahi Mahi are a beautiful tasting fish, so a striped tuna for sashimi, so a yellowfin tuna. If you do happen to pick up one of these as a bit of bycatch, you've got somewhere to put it. You know, like marlin, they're not going to fit in your esky, but it's just going to give you somewhere to put that bycatch. Also, we have about, I don't know, about 20 kilos of ice in there as well. We hold 20 kilos of ice just in case that we do decide to take a marlin, or if the marlin cannot be revived. So we take it to harvest it. You need a lot of ice, but also your drinks and everything. A lot of people run their eskies on the deck. Again, wouldn't recommend it. You need the deck space. We've actually just moved ours to down in here. It doesn't fit properly, but it gives us a lot more space up the back. Other things, a gaff pole. You always need a good gaff. Ours, again, is just stored under here just for transport. And then when we're not transporting, it's up on the rocket launchers. A good tag pole. We run, so we have our tag pole with the tag already ready to go. Again, quite vital if you are tagging and releasing fish, just have something ready. You know, you don't want to be holding the fish out of the water too long, or playing with it for too long. So we have the gaff pole ready at all times. The tag pole ready at all times with a live tag in it. Obvious things: sunglasses, sunscreen. You know, the water gets hot out there on those days without any cloud cover. It's going to be a hot day, right? And that sun's going to reflect. You're going to find out that you do burn quite quick, and it does give a little bit of discomfort. Other things that we really recommend is seasick tablets. I literally tell people that they cannot come on my boat unless they take one. You know, you get people all the time who go, "Oh, I don't get seasick." Then you're an hour into a 6-hour trip and they've gone completely green and it looks like they're going to die any second. So you have to turn around and come back in, and it ruins your day, it ruins their day. It also costs a lot of money in fuel, a lot of time preparation. You know, people take days off their jobs to come fishing using an annual leave day. So it's just very important. Everyone takes a seasick tablet. If you get seasick after you've taken your seasick tablet, there's nothing you can do about that, right? But if you get seasick and you don't take it, who knows if it would have worked or not. But we always make sure our guys take them. Okay, cameras. So we obviously use our GoPros and our DJI action cams. We always have a camera on board. We always have it running, but we also have a lot of spare batteries and wait to charge those batteries. And we also have portable phone chargers. Again, I've had one trip where I've been fighting a marlin and all of my batteries are dead. I've got the marlin to the boat, I've looked at the GoPro's dead, my phone's dead, not being able to take those photos. You get back home and all of a sudden you're the guy who caught a fish but doesn't have any evidence. Always bring your cameras. These fish are absolutely beautiful. You know, we've got the mounts on the boat just all over the place. We've got a mount there, we've got a mount on the other side. We also have a mount on the dash, and then we've got the cameras that actually run underwater as well, so we can record the bite. And yeah, I guess that's it for the equipment side of things. Oh, sorry, we'll run through the teasers as well. We actually run two different types of teasers, which we run here. Now, We run a Pakula Witch Doctor. These things are amazing. They're like mirror balls underwater, so they actually float. But when they get into the water with this edge at the front, they push down and they kind of flash like that. Seeing underwater footage of this is absolutely outstanding. We had this one hit the other week from a marlin. We didn't get the footage of it, but we had it hit by a marlin, and we just saw a big flash under the water at the back of the boat, and the teaser swing out wide, and then a few minutes later we had a hookup, or a few seconds later we had a hookup. The other thing that we run is dredged squid. So we actually run these on our underwater camera. I've just literally put them on the Witch Doctor just to see what they look like underwater, but they're just squid. Big daisy chain of squid. Very expensive squid too. Now, let's talk about lures. So, we have our big lure bag. All the lures that we run are homemade. So we have lots of different options, lots of different colors, lots of different head styles. When you run lures, you probably want to kind of like just find the ones that you're comfortable with at first. You know, lures can be very expensive. They can cost anywhere between, you know, $50 and $100, $50 for the cheaper ones, $100 for the apparently really good ones that you might never even catch a fish on. We home make our own. We've obviously designed our own, gone through a big design process of making our own lures, designing the heads from scratch, 3D printing them, and then molding and casting them using silicone and resin. And we use 4 different types of heads, and each of the heads has a different action. So we've got our cup head. It's, you know, got a lovely tapered bottom on it, little grooved insert in there. Now this lure, what it does is it runs pretty straight, but it dives down and leaves a massive bubble trail, comes back up, dives back down, leaves a big bubble trail, comes back up. Very smooth running lure. Where we tend to run these, and I'll talk through the spread in a moment, but where we tend to run these is out of the prop wash. Because their bubble trails are so pronounced and because they're so long, we run them outside on the edges off the riggers, out of the prop wash, so they're very visible to marlin. We've actually had probably more hookups on these than any other type of lure. The next one we have are the slant heads. So this has got a slant on the face of it. These ones, they're a bit erratic. Okay, so when they swim, they'll be swimming straight, and then all of a sudden it will dive to the left and then dive to the right and then go to the left, go to the right. Bit of that action, so it'll run straight and then suddenly just jolt to the left, jolt to the right. We run these off the corners, and the reason for this is it looks like a fleeing bait fish, and it gets at that prop wash quite a bit. We've had bigger fish on those lures on the slant heads because of the position that we've run them in those short corners. We also have 2 variations of just your standard, you know, inverted head, just a standard straight line lure. This one, or this color pattern, is probably our most successful one so far this season. And we run them all over the place. So we can run them out wide, we can run them on the corners. They've been very good. So always have a different kind of variation lures. Now all our lures, they're about 8 to 9 inches long, these ones. They're all pretty much the same length. And we use a 6-bar-0 hook in them. We've tried them with the bigger hooks. We find them better with the 6-bar-0s. The 6s have really, they've really been a good hook for us. Very solid hookup rate. So through our trips since October, we've had 5 marlin in 6 trips, and every hookup has been a fish. There has not been a time where we've not hooked up from a bite. So we're very happy with the 6-bar-0s. as I was saying before, we also put the leader on, so we have 7.2 meters of leader, around 200, 250 pound. I can't remember exactly what it is. In fact, I've probably got one on here. 200 pound. So a 200 pound leader, wind on. Just very, very good and stable leader to have. Not overkill again, but it just gives you enough. Okay. So the spread. What is a spread? The spread is how you present your lures in the water. Some people run, just 2 rods. Some people will run 4 rods. Some people run 5. Some people even run 7 on the bigger boats. On our boat, we run 4. With now and again, we run a 5th through the shotgun. But yeah, we're kind of comfortable with 4. Even when I'm solo fishing, I fish 4 and 2 teasers, which is a bit of a nightmare getting it all out of the water and keeping the line tight, but it's a process which we're comfortable with. So running 4, there's a way that you have to run them, and the reason why you set them up in a certain way is because when you're turning the boat, for a start, all the lures come over to one side, and there is a chance that they tangle up. So you have to run them at different distances from each other, just so they don't tangle up. Also, the different spots in the spread, which we'll take you through in a second, have got different variables of how fish like to attack the lures. So, we'll start off with the riggers. Now, we don't use outriggers. We've had a lot of thought about running outriggers on our boat, but we've really decided against it. We actually think that we don't need it. We've had the success without them, and we've been doing pretty well without them. But what we do need are these what are called rod riggers. So these are just metal poles that sit in the side, and what you do is you angle them out. So it's like an extension of your rod holder. Now these are also lanyarded to the boat, because again, they can come out. We stick our rod out here, and the rigger is a line that will go all the way down the back, and it will come out the side. And we run these probably about the 4th or 5th wave coming out the back, so probably about 30 to 40 meters off the back of the boat. These will sit out of the prop wash. We run these further than we run the corners, for that reason that they are far out. When we're turning the boat, they do tend to just come across. So by running them further out, we miss the lines that are closer. So we run one of those on each side, and they're our riggers. Pretty much the long riggers, as we'd call them, because they are out the furthest of what we run our spread. We also run our corners. So a corner rod would just be off the corner here and off the corner here. And there's 2 types of corners. You can run a long corner or a short corner. A short corner, again, it's actually quite close to the boat, where people will go, well, you're not going to catch the fish there. You're talking 10 to 15, 20 meters off the back of the boat, and I tell you now, you do catch fish there. Again, these seem to be the bigger fish. Now, this is right in your prop wash. Looking at the underwater footage, you look at it sometimes and go, well, how's a fish even seen that line? How's it even hit it? Well, they do. And yeah, so we run the corners at probably about 5 meters apart. So we run one about 20 meters off the back of the boat, one about 25. And again, we use those more erratic lures, those lures that you like to skip on the surface because they're not going to dive down as low because the line tension, but we run them off the bent butt rods. And then finally, the last one is the shotgun. Now you run your shotgun at the highest point of your boat, so pretty much here, which is why we've got the lanyard here. This will be miles down the back, and we can run them 50, 60, 70 meters off the back of the boat. We usually run them with a smaller lure. Now the shotgun's your last chance, right? We run them with a smaller lure in the hope that if we have passed a Mahi school, or if we pass a striped tuna school and they're not interested in the bigger lures, they will hit the ones that are further away. So yeah, that's how we set our spread. Obviously there's different ways of setting it. I'll put up a graphic on the screen so you can see in more detail. And then we run our teasers off the corners as well. So off the corner cleats, where that rope is and where that one is, we run both our teasers, and we run these roughly about 20 meters back. So one of our teasers has a camera on it, the other one's a witch doctor. And we run them about 20 meters back and have those lures probably about 2 meters back from them. So they'll be shining underwater doing their thing, attracting in the fish, attracting in the marlin, and we have the lures right above them. Now, can you catch fish without a teaser? 100%. Do they bring in more fish? It's one of these things that you can never qualify, right? You can never say, oh, a teaser brought in, I wouldn't have caught this fish if the teaser wasn't in the water. But what we found is 90% of our bites have been off a side where the teaser's running. So if we're only running one teaser, 90% of the bites that we've had have been off the side that the teaser has been on. Versus not running a teaser, they're on both sides. You know, it's a bit of a variable. One last thing on lures has just come to my mind. Lures, you know, people will go, oh, match the hatch. So if you're in a flying fish school, have blue lures out. People have very varied opinions on lures and how you interchange them. So if you're out all day, you know, and you've been trolling for 4 hours and you've not caught anything, some people will think, well, I need to swap my lures over. And they'll do that. And some people will religiously swap their lures every half an hour, every 2 hours. And then you get people like me who never swap them at all. I sit with what I have. It's going to be very hard to tell, to say that I caught a fish because I swapped the lure. Like, would that fish have bitten your other lure? Were you just at the right place at the right time? It's one of the things that you can never qualify. Personally, I think, looking at the underwater footage, I don't think a fish is coming to look at your lure and then swimming away. I think if it's hungry, it's going to eat it and in the mood. I don't think swapping lures is something that does work. But then again, other people will swear by it. So it's all down to personal preference. Now, what I would do and what I would say is have a variation of lures out. Don't run a full spread of blue lures. Don't run a full spread of pink lures or green. Have a good variation of different types, sizes, and colours out there. We've had seasons where, no lie, out of 10 fish that we've caught, 8 of them have been on a pink and 2 of them have been on a blue. And then the next season, we'll have 8 on a blue and 2 on a pink. And then the next season, it will be 5 and 5. You do get these periods where fish will go, I am only going to eat a pink lure. It is mad, where the amount of fish that we catch on a certain lure colour certainly sets the tone for the season. This season, it's all over the place. We've had them on blues, we've had them on blacks, we've had them on orange, we've had them on pinks. We've not had one on the green yet. But they are all over the place. So just always think about how your lures are presented more, rather than I need to swap them. Okay, so we've got our boat set up, we've got our tackle, we know how to set a spread. So the next thing in line really is, how do we prepare our crew? And preparing a crew is one of the most important things that you can do. We use this great app. Let me just bring it up. It's called Quasi. I'll put a link to it. It's actually brilliant. So when we're running 3 people on the boat, we have to decide who is going to be the first person on strike. So this app, I'll show it here, is literally just a rock, paper, scissors kind of thing, right? So if this finger's person 1 and this finger's person 2, you both put a finger on the screen, and then it just picks a winner. So, right, this goes, okay, person 2 is going to be first on strike. So we set our strike order, and we go, who is going to be on strike? Who is going to be clearing decks, and who's going to be driving the boat? Now, the skipper's usually the one driving the boat. And you will get a lot of people going, well, it's my boat, I want to catch the first fish on it. It's fair. You do get people going, okay, well, you take the rods on the right side and I'll take them on the left side. And again, it's a fair way of doing it. But one thing that it doesn't do is set you up for that preparation of as soon as that strike happens, you know what you have to do. Also, as I said before, about having that person already in the gimbal, already in the harness, ready to fight that fish. It's very difficult if you kind of like only got the one harness on board and you're swapping around and you don't really know who's going to fight the fish. So having this order set up and everybody's roles is really important. So the three main roles is you're going to have, first up, the person on the rod, right? The angler who is going to be fighting this fish. Now they've got the very important job of they have to be to that rod first and they have to keep that line tight. So as soon as that reel goes, as soon as that fish is on, they need to be grabbing that rod, keeping it tight, and we'll take you through that in a little bit. The second person needs to be clearing the deck. You know, if you've only got two people on the boat, the person driving the boat, they're going to have to help clear the deck. And the reason why you need to get all these lines out of the water is because that fish is going to go everywhere. And it's going to cross over these lines and everything. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. You need these lines out of the water and you need them stored in a place where the angler has space. Up on the rocket launchers on the roof, into your cabin, or into some sort of rod storage that you have on your boat. Just get them out the way. Now, once the rods are cleared, you then need your landing procedure. Okay, so who's going to lead of the line, who's going to handle the fish, who's going to get the hook out, who's going to hold the fish for you to get your photos and everything. Have all that set up beforehand. Talk your crew through it, talk your crew through what's going to happen. I've got a great video of a very green crew. We had Nathan and Chris on board. Neither of them had caught a marlin. Both of them had played a marlin for a very brief amount of time, but none of them had played a marlin, caught a marlin, and actually had it boated and released. And we just had a very, very clear communication stream. We knew Chris was on strike. We knew Nathan was cleaning deck. We knew I was helping clean deck while driving the boat. We had a very, very, very seamless encounter. And we tagged and released a marlin within 25 minutes of hooking it up. It was very, very flawless with a very green crew because they've been prepared in what was to happen. Just make sure that you prepare your crew, because I can tell you now there are three rules. You stay calm, you panic, you stay calm, in that order. There is that panic section, that excitement section of we've got a big fish on. It's going to do a lot of things. People are going to get excited. People are going to get in the way. Just have that one person, that clear, calm instruction, that clear, calm voice of this is what we're going to do. And then everyone's on board. Okay, so we've prepped our crew. We've now, we've got our rods, prepped our crew, we're out in the ocean, beautiful calm day, and we're trawling, and all of a sudden, a line goes. Now, the way that we've prepped our boat is we actually have this seat. These seats turn 360 degrees around. You can face them forward, face them backwards. This is our trolling seat. So we always have somebody out there looking at the spread. It's the best seat in the house. Very comfortable, feet up on the back. It's a very comfortable place to sit and watch the spread. So let's imagine we're out there and one of the rods has just screamed off. Now, the most intuitive thing for the person driving the boat to do is to stop the boat. And that's the wrong thing to do. You need to ensure that when you've hooked up this fish that you are clearing all the other lines and also setting that hook. So when the drag setting is quite high, the rod's screaming off, if you actually keep driving for a little bit, you keep going for another 10, 15 seconds, what that does, it removes the fish from your lines. It removes them from the swim. So there you can bring in all your other lines safely. Your guy doesn't have to grab the rod at that time. You can just leave it in the holder as you're booting forward. No one needs to clear the deck. It's once you bring it back down. Now then what we do is we bring it back down to probably about 1 knot, maybe 1.5, just while we're clearing the other lines, just to make sure that fish is staying out the back. Yes, it will be stripping line, it will be jumping all over the place. People are going to want to get their photos. Just calm down and lock in. That's the one thing you have to do is, as a crew, is calm down and lock in through all that mayhem. That fish is going to be dancing. Everyone's going to want photos of it, okay? They're going to get their opportunity. But the most important thing is you get the lines out the water, you get the teasers out, and you lock the angler in. Now at that point, you know, your lines are out, you've stopped the boat. It's now time for the angler to come off the rod holder, pick up that rod. You know, you can help him with that rod, get him clipped in, clip in the rod to the harness, and just for the first few seconds of a new fish, hold the back of that harness just until he gets that weight on it, just until he understands exactly what he needs to be doing. It's a fresh feeling being hooked to a marlin, especially when it's running a stripping line. Don't be tempted to lock the line up too much if it's running. Just don't be in. One thing never to do, you'll see it on YouTube, you'll see it everywhere. The big game boats, they back down on fish, they reverse down on fish, and you wind and like you try and keep as much line. The reason why they're doing that is because from a competition status, they need to tag and release that fish as quickly as possible. Okay, they've got a very experienced crew who are doing it. If you do it in a trailer boat, you're going to get a bill on your boat and potentially in one of your anglers. These marlin, they jump, and they're not afraid to jump into a boat. And it is going to kill someone one day where they decide to jump into a boat and spear someone. It's happened plenty of times before. You can see plenty of videos, and you're a long way offshore. Don't back down on a fish. Play it and play it safe. Okay, you're not on a clock. You don't need to tag as many fish as you can. You just need to make sure that when you're still inexperienced, play this marlin and get it to the boat safely. Don't back down on it. So your angler's harnessed up, you've got your deck clear and safe and all the stuff stored away, plenty of deck space. Now it's time for your angler to play the fish, and this is the time where you're going to get a lot of photos, you're going to get a lot of people wanting to get close to the angler. Just give him his space. As I said, if you see that line starting to come around to the left-hand side and he's on the right-hand side, just make sure that left-hand side of the deck is clear of people. No one's in front of the line, no one else touches a rod or the line or anything. Just let that angler do his thing. You then, you know, you're going to come to a point where the fish is close to the boat. And just because a fish is close to the boat, that doesn't mean it's ready to come in. It means that the fish is close to the boat and it's probably at the point of where it's going to start having its second wind. Marlin have two sets of muscle groups. The first muscle group they use for speed, and the second muscle group they use just for, you know, cruising. And what they tend to do is they will switch those muscle groups around and let one recover while they're using the other. So they might use their speed at the start, or they will use their speed at the start. You'll then get it close to the boat and think, well, this isn't a very good fight. And then all of a sudden it will go absolutely schizo at the boat. It'll be jumping all over the place, you know, 5 meters off the edge of the boat, because it's switched back to that second muscle group. So once it's close to the boat, again, don't panic, give the angler his space. Don't be tempted as soon as you see the leader just to grab it. Again, just let the angler wind up as much as he can. This fish is going to start pinwheeling at the bottom as well. It's going to be under your boat, it's going to keep going under, so your boat driver needs to be just keeping that fish away from the prop. Always keep it away from the prop, try and play it off the side. And secondly, it's going to like start rubbing off the bottom of the boat at times. Again, just angle the boat to try and keep the fish in one spot. Once it does come up, you will very, very clearly see when a marlin's defeated. It will float to the surface, and then, you know, you can grab your leader, you can pull it to the boat. Now what we do is we usually use our rod lanyards, and we tie up the bill using a rod lanyard so the bill is secure. Now at this point as well, you want to put your boat back into probably about 1 or 2 knots forward. Okay, so you'll have one person holding the bill with it landed up. The fish is still hooked. You can put the rod back in the holder, but you want to start getting oxygen back into that fish as quick as possible. You want to get its color back. You want to see its tail flapping a little bit. This is basically to keep the fish alive. So as you're towing it, this is a point where you can get your tag pole, stick a tag in it, get all your photos done, and then once you're ready, you're going to take the hook out, but you're still going to hold that fish at the side of the boat as the boat's going forward. Now, increase your speed to about 4 knots. Keep holding the fish. Now, you don't let that fish go until you can see visible tail kicks, until you can see little head shakes, and you make sure the fish is the right way up. Don't swim it upside down, have it the right way up, and then you'll know when she's ready. Okay, she'll get her color back, she would have burnt off all that lactic acid, and she'll be ready to go. You'll see it. And just give her a little push as she's kicking. Make sure that she's kicking before you release her, else she's just going to go belly up and probably die of oxygen starvation. You have to do this, and it's going to be a process. It's going to take you 4 or 5 minutes, but she will kick. Okay, she will. Let's keep her straight. Now, that's how you release. Some people don't like to release, and I actually saw a video the other day, and I was really appalled by it. There was about an 80 kilo marlin caught. I won't say where from. And the guy in the video turns around and goes, "Oh, we're going to bring it onto the boat so the skipper can get some photos of it. And then he's going to throw it back in." I was like, what the hell do you mean? You're taking an 80 kilo fish out the water to get a couple of photos that you could get off the side of your boat. And you're going to hold it in the most ridiculous way. And then you're just going to throw it back over the side. Now, these guys also didn't have a dive door. I've got a dive door, which the side of the boat. So if I wanted to boat a fish, I could literally just pull it straight in. They pulled it up over the side, and they got photos of it. And then they just threw it back in, and were pushing it back off the back of the boat. One, it's going to damage and stress that fish so damn much, already more than it is stressed. You've got issues where you're pushing it or pulling it on. Its gill plates could get caught. You could do some serious damage to it. It's really not worth it. 2, you're bringing an 80 kilo wild animal alive onto your deck with a sword as its nose. And as I said, they can switch their muscle groups very, very quickly. Just because it's calm at the moment doesn't mean that it's going to be calm in 30 seconds time. You're putting yourself and your crew in danger. Now, this is only my advice to you, is don't do it. I'm not saying it's illegal to do. I'm not saying it's, you can't do it. But you got to really think that if you're releasing that fish, is it worth it? Now, finally, if you do decide that you want to harvest a marlin, what you need to remember are a few key things. First of all, if you're on a trailer boat and you catch a marlin at 7 o'clock in the morning, that's your day done. Your day is over. You cannot have a marlin on the deck for more than, say, an hour before all that meat is ruined. So if you are going to keep a marlin, you need to make that call straight away that this is day over, that you are going back in. What I'd recommend is, if you are going to do this, use the ice that you've got in your esky, your 20 kilos of ice. Put the bags along the back of the marlin across the meat section and have a wet towel, and put the wet towel straight over those bags. Try and keep those bags in place, and that'll keep the meat as fresh as possible. Like we're talking about Australia, guys. It's bloody hot out there. That ice is going to melt very quick. That fish is going to be ruined before you can even get it back. So if you are going to keep a marlin, know your day is over. You're going back regardless of what time it is. If you keep it on deck all day for another 4 or 5 hours baking in the sun, that fish is ruined. That fish is absolutely unedible, and you've killed a marlin just for the sake of it. Now, also when you get back, look, there is a law about a marlin carcass or a big fish carcass that you have to dispose of them 1 nautical mile off the coast, outside the headlands. I'm absolutely over seeing bull sharks at my local boat ramp eating carcasses of fish that people have thrown in, like big marlin or other sharks or big jewfish. The law's the law, guys. If you're gonna take this home, you need to dispose of that carcass in a way that's either one, on land, or two, it is not being just thrown back in at the boat ramp. And what you need to remember as well is marlin meat doesn't freeze very well. It's better fresh than it is frozen, a lot better. It goes down a couple of grades once you freeze it. Marlin have a 55% meat yield. And what that means is if you have a 100 kilo fish, you have 55 kilos of edible meat on that marlin. Just think about it. Can you eat or share with your family and your friends, even the dogs, 55 kilos worth of meat in the period of time that you need to? If you're like, I only eat 2 kilos of fish a week and I've got no one to share it with, why the hell are you taking a marlin? Set it back, tag it, release it. I took one not so long back, around 50 kilos. It was a small one, 50 kilos. I had about 30 kilos of meat off that fish. I'd already planned 10 kilos for my dog, 5 kilos for my family, and I have multiple people around the street who I also gave, a good couple of kilos to. Not one bit of that fish went to waste. We also had the bill. A lot of people like to keep the bill as a trophy. There are a couple of ways to do this. I have one buried in my garden at the moment, and it will be buried for another year. That will let all the worms and the grubs and all the microorganisms just eat all of the crap off it. Another way to clean a bill is to stick it in, a bleach and water mix for a couple of days, just to kill anything on it. But it doesn't leave a smoother finish. Then you just coat it in resin, and then you've got it for your mount. Again, no problem with people keeping marlin. But what I have got a problem with is people dumping them at boat ramps and attracting all the sharks. And secondly, dumping a lot of the meat. There is a lot of meat on these fish, guys, but it doesn't freeze well. So let's talk about where and when can you catch marlin. So we've got our boat set up, we've got our crew prepped. There are certain times that you can catch marlin in the year. Like in the winter, yes, you can catch them, but they'll be very rare. And in a trailer boat, I'd say no, because they'll be out at the shelf. When it starts coming into summer, so we caught our first one in September this year. Late September was our first stripe of this season. We then caught 2 in October, 2 in November. We haven't been out in December yet. Sorry, we've been out once in December and didn't catch. You need to look for the warm water. So when the warm water starts pushing down from Queensland, it comes around like that Port Stephens area, it comes further down the coast into like Lake Macquarie, Sydney. When that water starts coming to around 22 degrees is a great time to be looking for the striped marlin inside the shelf. So around this December time, it's hotting up, it's going to be good. Now we did last couple of weeks have a cold current pushing north, which then brought a lot of cold water back into that hot water, and it made it not really the great environment for the marlin to be in. So we're now waiting again for the warm water to start pushing south again, so we can get that steady 22, 23 degree water where the marlin will be. So looking around December, definitely January through to April, there are a lot of marlin a lot closer in. We caught some last year around the 80 meter mark. There have been reports even down into 30 meters. Those little blacks, once the little blacks are in, the 30 to 50 kilo marlin, you can catch them 30, 50 meters quite regularly if you know where and how to look for them. So where and how, right? The sea and a marlin it's quite figuratively a needle in a haystack. If you don't know where to look, you're not going to catch one, right? Because you're after a fish in a massive sea. So the first thing that we really try and keep our mind on, and probably the most focused thing that we're doing while we're driving around looking for them, is looking to see what the bird action is doing. And you have, there's 3 types of birds which you'll see out in the ocean on a regular basis. You know, like, let's take away your albatrosses and your bigger seagulls and stuff like that. But the 3 type of birds which I'd really be looking for are, number 1, gannets. Gannets are, they're like your Japanese suicide bomber planes back in World War II. They tuck their wings back, they dive down, and they smash that water. Now, when you see a school of gannets, and I'm talking, you know, like 10 to 100 of them, all hitting the water, all having a great time, you know, you've got to go troll that water. You've got to go to that location. And if you see them sitting on top of the water, they're full, they're fed. They're not feeding anything. They're waiting for something to happen. Trolling next to them, you're just wasting your time. When they're up in the air, they start to hover for a second, and then they dive down and hit the water. Gannets are a great sign of a good bait fish feeding. I usually see them out at the shelf. I don't really see them inside the shelf. I've started to see a couple. I think we had 3 last trip. They're following our lures, but we didn't see them hitting the water. But they were certainly flying around. But yeah, we usually find them more offshore than inshore. The second type of bird to look for are called shearwaters. And they're like the brownie coloured ones that you see, you know, you'll see plenty of them offshore, but you need to watch what action they're doing. So they usually fly solo, and you'll see one, it'll just be gliding away. Ignore that bird. That bird is looking for fish as much as you are. If you see 4 or 5 of them, all in one area, something is happening over there and you need to take notice. What these shearwaters do as well, they will glide a path. If they turn back on themselves and go back over that path, it's worth a look. From what we've seen, you know, we've seen these fish, these birds circling a spot, and we've driven over it, and the bait 200 meters deep. 20 meters deep. So they've obviously got good vision where they can see down into the water and through it. Now these birds, they don't really hit the water and dive down like the gannets do. If you see like 5 or 6 of them sat on top of the water as well, or a big herd of them, like 10 of them sat on the water, there's usually something under them. We've caught so many marlin where we've literally trolled past birds sitting on the surface, these shearwaters. But if you find like a field of them and they're all over the place, there's hundreds of them and they're absolutely everywhere, work that area, because that's usually a sign that the bait is really spread out. There are localized bait balls within that big view, and to really just try and work all of that area, because you'll definitely find some bait there. And where the bait is, there's obviously some fish, some bigger fish eating it. The third one are terns. They're the little ones. You'll find them more inshore than you will outshore, but they do dive down, they do hit the water. So if you see them diving down into the water, again, it's a localization of bait, and it's always worth having a look around to see what's there. So, other sea life to really look for, dolphins. Now, people think, oh, I've seen dolphins, that means there must be fish here. Look, dolphins hunt, marlin follow dolphins, tuna follow marlin. But also dolphins eat tuna. So just because dolphins are traveling, it doesn't really mean that there's going to be fish near them. So if you see dolphins like riding in the wake of your boat and stuff, it's just dolphins riding in the wake of your boat, having a bit of fun while they're looking for some food. If you see dolphins feeding, same with whales, if you see whales feeding, there is more than likely fish around that area. Now, what I will say is it is against the law to go too close to a dolphin or a whale intentionally, so you do need to keep your space between these fish. You don't want to get too close to them anyway. Now, we've got some great footage previously of dolphin following our tow cameras, dolphin, you know, jumping around our spread. I've never ever heard of a dolphin hitting a lure, so just, you know, be careful getting too close to them. So, yeah, look, I think that's it on how to set up a trailer boat. You know, set it up for comfort. You're going to have long days out there. Have all the equipment ready. You can never buy enough equipment. You can never have enough lures. You can never have enough rods. You know, your wife will tell you quite often, do you really need that other fishing rod? Well, of course you do. How are you going to catch a fish without a fishing rod? But what I will say is also pick your days. Okay, the weather, the swell. I won't take this out in, like, this is a 7-meter boat, and I don't really take it out in anything above a 1.3 swell with a 20 knot wind, or even a 15 knot wind. Pick your days. There are plenty of days which look good. If you're unsure, don't be afraid to turn back. You know, your safety is more important than anything. And what I would also say is don't try this solo unless you know what you're doing, unless you know your boat, unless you know the locations. Like, these fish are big. You know, they're big, big fish. I hope you catch them. I really do, guys. And if you do, you know, throw us a message. In fact, you know, if you do have any comments, any commentary, any opinions, any suggestions, or any different sort of opinions, you know, even if you're like, hey, look, I don't agree with what you're saying, you know, let me know in the comments. Like, knowing what we're doing and what we're trying to do for you guys and put you on to fish a lot easier. You know, not everyone's going to have the same opinions, and not everyone's going to have the same kind of thoughts and feelings over how fishing is. You know, everyone's got their different way of doing it. All we're trying to do is to put you onto fish in a safe and efficient way, so you can, you know, experience what we experience on a weekly basis in catching these beautiful big marlin. And, you know, we tag them, release them, and get them out. If you want to keep them, you keep them. But yeah, I hope we've given you some insight. I know it's been a long video, guys. I'm going to try and break it up in post edit with like a load of videos and stuff in there. As I said, we have got other videos of, you know, examples of where we've been using the harnesses, examples of where we've hooked up alone, hooked up solo, where we've hooked up, you know, had double hookups, where we've had a green crew. All the videos will really show you how we operate and how we manage fish when we're playing them. But yeah, by no means are we the best out there, but we hold our weight, guys, and we catch a lot of fish. So, thank you so much for watching. If you got to this point, I'd really appreciate a subscribe, a like, you know, drop a comment, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. All right, thank you.